Hi, so my name's Fenner and I'm the Managing Director of DefProc Engineering. And I've been invited today to talk to you about IoT in action and how this relates to IT systems and networks. And I'll also be sharing kind of my experiences of developing IoT technology and how IT systems will play a huge role in kind of the future of the digitisation at scale. So we'll start with me. I don't have a lovely animation. We just have one slide. So as part of my talk today, obviously I've been asked to share with you kind of my career background and my experience of being a woman in the tech sector. So firstly, I didn't start out in technology. I don't have a degree in IT. I haven't done any engineering of any kind. I am actually a designer, which is very different to kind of what you might expect. So I actually studied textile design at Loughborough University. And so I've come at technology from an incredibly different angle to everybody else. So after graduating, this is kind of how, trying to introduce the story of how I ended up in technology, so you can see sort of the big picture of how a designer ends up managing a technology company. So after graduating, I found it incredibly difficult to find a role within design that I was actually interested in. There was a lot of things that all seemed sort of one-dimensional, so sort of corporate roles were very sort of like, you do this job and this is what you do. And I was like, that doesn't feel like me. That doesn't feel like something that I could do for a long time. And I went through various different sort of job application processes and ended up sort of just finding myself like, I'm not really that, I can't really find what it is that I wanted to do. And I really wanted the opportunity as part of my career to be doing something new and different. But one of the things that I really loved about my design education, and I did it for a really long time, so like it was one of the things that took me at 16 when we were doing GCSEs. It was like, I love art, I love design, and that's all I really wanted to do. But one of the things I really loved about it was this focus on what's next, what's society going to look like in the future, and how we're going to move forward. But as part of that education, you have to look all the way back. So we started with the ancient Greeks and kind of what that society looked like, and all the way through to kind of modern day, where we are now. And the interesting thread all the way through was how humans have created systems, technology, devices on a large scale, and that kind of gradual introduction of technology has actually changed our society and kind of advanced humans so far that we couldn't do a lot of the stuff that we do now without technology. And that was really the motivation behind kind of why I wanted to be a co-founder of DefProc Engineering. So back in 2013, we founded the company. So my co-founder is actually my husband. He is the engineer, but we'll leave him out of it for the time being. So he is the engineer. But one of the things that I've done through my kind of career since we started is I've actually shifted my learning. I understand more of the bigger picture of technology, so I might not be able to code or design IoT devices. What I do understand and what I do bring to it is how it fits into the world, its possibilities, and how we move it forward. So DefProc, as nobody in this room will have probably heard of, is a very small company based in Liverpool Science Park. And we work as an innovation partner for small and large businesses. And we provide service for proof of concepts, prototyping, creating working prototypes that go for regulatory testing, and small-scale manufacturing. And the reason we started the company was because back in the grand old days of 2010, which feels like a long time ago now, and you were all babies, we decided we wanted to create our own products. And we decided, right, we're going to start a business, we're going to make our own product, this is going to be our opportunity to do something new. And we were really excited. We did all the design work, we figured it all out. And then we went to a manufacturer and said, right, we'd like to make a prototype. And the manufacturers were like, we don't make one. If you want anything made, you're going to have to make it yourself or find somebody else and come back when you're ready to build at scale. And that was obviously a big blow nowadays. So now we have lots of access to things like research and development support through universities. Local governments provide all sorts of startup funding and all that kind of thing, but that actually didn't exist kind of 10 or so years ago. And so one of the things we were like, right, okay, well, we're going to have to try and make one. And what we did was we went to a local makerspace. They had some equipment, it was very basic, and we started kind of setting about the thing we wanted to make. But while we were there, we met lots of other people who were also on a similar thought around products that they'd like to design. And particularly at that time, it was all about IoT. Everybody had figured out that we could, create all these products that were connected to the internet. Whatever mad idea you can think of, somebody tried to connect it to the internet. I think one of the maddest projects somebody was trying to do was an internet-connected bin that could tell you when it was full. And I was a bit like, do we really need an internet-connected bin? Should we not all have eyes? But that was kind of the level, that was the thing that people were like really interested in, was what can we connect to the internet? And one of the interesting bits is Patrick, my husband. He is very, obviously, engineering focused, but he has very much the mind of innovation and, okay, how do we solve these problems? And at that time, he was then in the right place in that makerspace to start supporting people. And that's kind of how we actually ended up with the company that we have now. So we kind of abandoned our own work that we were doing and actually started to take on clients who wanted to help, we wanted to help them create their technology. And since then, so we've worked with a whole variety of sectors. So we don't just focus on one sector, we work across all kinds of things with all kinds of clients. We've worked with everybody from like BBC R&D, Science and Media Museum. We've worked with the Environment Agency. They're still one of our clients. We've worked with them for about 5 years on creating services that they can take from what were sort of analog services into kind of more digital. So we're looking at things like fish counting, using AI, machine learning, and developing those kind of on water level sensors. And we've also worked with Northern Gas Networks, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. And because we've worked across that range of sectors and because we offer that bespoke service, it means that we get to be kind of at the very start of so many different innovation projects. But the first 5 years of our business, so bearing in mind we started in 2010, 2013, I sort of looked after it as a part-time basis. So while we have an engineer who can deliver, there also needs to be somebody who can make what he does into a business, make it sustainable, make it so that the projects that we take on are actually deliverable and able to be fully managed. And also for us to be able to expand from, because it was just him at the start and me as a support, to make sure that our business got out there, make sure he was able to get the opportunities that he needs to. And then from there, it's been my role to grow this business. But in order to grow this business, I have to understand where it fits. Where does a service for prototyping, proof of concepts actually fit in the world? And that's been sort of my sort of introduction, very sort of steep learning curve, but my sort of introduction into technology. And one of the other things I've sort of done over that time is always really quite passionate about introducing kind of STEM and art subjects. So I was a volunteer organiser for Liverpool Make Fest, And Liverpool Make Fest at the time it started off as a small festival in Liverpool Library, and then sort of grew to having like over 1,000 visitors for the week, for that day. And I was part of that, and we had robotics workshops and all sorts, and it was all aimed at introducing science, technology, engineering, maths, and also I dragged in design and art because I was like, it's really important because all of those things need to work together. And then I've become a member of the Liverpool City Region Advanced Manufacturing Board. That's quite an important role for basically for the city region. We help understand sort of what SMEs, because we're a very small business, what challenges SMEs face in the kind of manufacturing technology sector, and then also a member of the Liverpool Industrial Advisory Board. So moving on to some projects. So my first large project, so I took over as Managing Director in 2018, so that's about 5-6 years ago. My first large project was the Liverpool 5G Health and Social Care Testbed. And this was a really steep learning curve for me personally and for DefProc. At the time when we won this project, there was just the two of us, and it was going to be a 6-month-long project, and we needed to grow and also meet the challenges that this project brought. The 5G project was funded as part of a national government initiative to fully realise the capability of 5G technology and to find out how transformative it could be for a range of industries. So it wasn't just health and social care, it was manufacturing, I think there was tourism in there. There was all sorts of different ways that different regions of the country could see if they could utilise 5G. But the Liverpool Health and Social Care Testbed was the only project that actually focused on social value. The opportunity to be able to trial a range of new technologies at this scale was a challenge, and this had never really been done before. We were working with participants from Kensington in Liverpool, which is just up the hill, basically because the overall aim of the project was to revolutionise health and social care services by delivering and creating 5G network that would be free for residents during whilst if they wanted to use digital health and social care services. By having this network, it would allow for the adoption of digital services to be utilised more widely, especially in deprived areas such as Kensington, where the uptake of broadband services is significantly lower than other areas in the UK. The main objectives for this were to look at the practicalities of delivering the network and to further develop early stage products that could be used on this network. Then this technology as a service within the health and social care for the trial period. The outcomes were to further understand sort of the limitations and to gain feedback from participants of how the technology actually benefited them. And then, sorry, I lost my note. This was then to create a real world case study for innovation and digital transformation, and this has been showcased kind of internationally. It was one of the best test beds out of I think there was 6 in total, and Liverpool City Council in particular have had huge amounts of recognition for the work that they've done for digital transformation. So our role within this project was to provide a LoRaWAN network, and that is a long-range radio wide area network. It's not really important for this if you don't know what it is. With a 5G backhaul, essentially, it was to connect a network that can have small amounts of data onto backhaul with 5G. And our IoT service was called Push to Talk. This is an IoT button that uses LoRaWAN. This service was designed to support people who struggle with loneliness and feeling isolated because they either couldn't get out of their house or they had limited contact with other people. According to the campaign to end loneliness, there are 9 million people in the UK that identify as feeling lonely. this is going to get a bit sad, sorry. The long-term feelings of loneliness have the same health impacts of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. They increase cases of depression and anxiety, and in severe cases of loneliness can cause stroke, heart attack and premature death. So, sorry about that. But loneliness has a significant cost to the NHS and local authority services, with the increased use of social services, GP appointments and ambulance call-outs. Having this button or an app, we did develop an app to go alongside, would allow people to press it and then be able to be connected to somebody else. So rather than a volunteer-led service, they would be connected to somebody else who was also in there, also isolated at home, and be able to kind of share a similar experience. So that's kind of where we were. So this is kind of how the system worked. We'll just sort of run through this because we're coming up on time. So the system worked by pressing the button. This would send a signal to the LoRaWAN gateway, and this would then be received by the server. Using Twilio, which is a programmable call service, would match the numbers together and make the call to each person, and then they could just talk to each other. We had some brilliant feedback, and those that trialled the service loved it. However, the interesting part about this innovation is when innovation meets existing systems and infrastructure. We were lucky with our first trial as we worked with Local Solutions, a charity that provides support services to unpaid family carers. Carers are often extremely isolated, as their caring responsibilities often mean they don't get to socialise as often or if at all, and this can make them really isolated. As part of the trial, DefProc managed the LoRaWAN network, and we managed the server side of the service, so we didn't need any IT support service. And this meant we could manage it at a small scale. Local Solutions had a brilliant technical lead and for their digital programme, and they were able to support the carers and use the technology while we managed that server side. The challenges came when we wanted to scale further, and we wanted to work in conjunction with other local authorities. We worked with Conway and Denbighshire County Councils on a new trial. The aim of the trial was to use North Wales's new LoRaWAN network. This network was managed by the local authority. Their goal was to deploy more gateways and to expand their network with the push-to-talk trial as a use case, so they could demonstrate kind of we've got this asset, we've got this technology that can work, and it's going to solve our problems. However, when we started the project, because they didn't have a digital programme, they weren't able to actually deliver what they wanted. They didn't understand that actually when you start introducing digital technologies to sort of the general public, it actually needs a whole shift, infrastructure change, and the IT departments that we were working with got very overwhelmed. They just didn't understand kind of how to manage their IoT assets and the systems and kind of bring it all together. So it became very challenging, and because we were based in Liverpool and this was in North Wales, it became quite difficult. So moving on to 2024, 3, 4, wherever we are. We've now taken all the learnings from that particular trial and how to deliver IoT. During that time of trying to deliver push-to-talk, it was incredibly stressful and challenging because everything that we were trying to do had never been done before, and the systems for adoption of new technology were just not in place. So moving forward to now, there's been a lot of learning, I think, in industry of all levels, that if we want to digitise, things have to change and things have to move on. So because we've taken the learnings from the push-to-talk trials into all of our other IoT projects, we started not only looking at like the devices and the connectivity side, but also what does the product need to scale, and we do that from the beginning. What systems and operations will need to be in place for it to be a success, and this needs to be considered both by us, but also on the client side. And we work closely with our clients to help them think about the bigger picture, and also so they can see that their IoT product, see what their IoT products need to fit into the real world, and what already exists to support its adoption, but also what needs to be created so this technology can be fully adopted. One of the things that's happened with IoT is lots of things get through the R&D stage, but never actually get to that full realization, and because that's the whole point of the technology. One of our most recent projects, so we have stepped away from health and social care for this particular project. We are now collaborating with Northern Gas on a smart gas pressure sensor as part of the decarbonisation of the domestic energy use. This sensor is designed to monitor the pressure of each, to monitor the gas pressure at each domestic property. And if it detects low pressure, it will automatically close the valve, and the network's operation team will be notified and an engineer sent to the area. So why do we need a smart gas pressure sensor? Firstly, due to hydrogen having lower density and energy content than natural gas, it needs a higher flow rate. The UK gas network runs on low pressure, basically means that it doesn't need lots and lots of pressure to run properly. And so it means that maintaining supply for the hydrogen for customers and equipment is crucial. As an introduction of 100% hydrogen will be new, there isn't a lot of information available about how it will work. Ensuring that the networks remain safe and operational is crucial. Secondly, this diagram kind of shows you what needs to happen when a customer detects a gas leak. So the customer has to report the problem when there's a problem with their gas supply, and this can be a time-consuming process for both networks and consumers, as an engineer is required to visit each property that is affected by the incident. And this can sometimes take days because they need to go into each property and manually shut off supply. This can mean that customers can be disconnected for longer periods than necessary, and it can mean that it just takes much longer than it needs to. But also, while the gas networks are off supply, this then means that customers can require compensation, and the gas networks will be fined for over a particular amount of time. So our solution is to provide a sensor that sits at the domestic property, and when it detects a low pressure event, so there's a trigger of 17 millibar is detected, this sensor is designed to shut off that gas supply automatically, meaning that the networks will be notified and they can send an engineer out as soon as possible to make sure that that repair can be completed. At the present time, all the customers have to ring into the call centre and make that complaint, and then the engineers come out. This will mean that if there's a gas leak at 4 o'clock in the morning, your gas supply will be turned off, an engineer can be sent out, and you'll be notified that you haven't got any gas for the time being, and then the repairs can be started much quicker than before. And it just means that it's fewer and shorter disruptions, and as time goes on, this pressure sensor will be able to collect the data and then be used for predicting when there's likely to be a low pressure event in the area. So IoT and IT at scale. So it seems like it would be a perfectly simple idea to attach sensors to 2,000, a million homes and have this managed, but there's actually an awful lot that needs to be considered to make this work. So for scaling the device, we have to ensure that NGN can fully utilise the data and bring it into their processes. So NGN have actually spent time, so whereas in the Push to Talk projects, the local authorities had no real kind of understanding of what was needed, NGN have actually spent time discovering what it is that they need to do to be able to utilise digitisation. They intend to build the system that can manage the data that's going to be received from the sensors. They will do the visualization so that it can be used in real time. Have an alert system that needs to be set up on how the customers are going to be notified and how the engineers are going to be notified. Well, there's lots of things to consider alongside just making systems. We've also got the who's responsible for managing the alerts, who's responsible for maintaining that network, so maintaining connectivity, maintaining all those devices, and then how is this going to impact their day-to-day operations. So the future. So I wanted to just kind of touch a little bit on where things might be going, and so you've got a bit of an idea of the new things that are coming. So in 10 years' time, it's set to be some of the biggest changes in how we use technology, and how IT and computer science is all going to be at that kind of forefront. Digitisation of infrastructure for things like our energy distribution networks are only the start. There is set to be a rise in the future for digital health technologies at scale, and current systems to manage these are yet to be fully realised. There are so many opportunities to be involved in creating kind of innovative systems and creative ways of managing and maintaining these services. The tech industry really does need innovative and creative thinkers. And it needs people who really want to kind of solve some of these big challenges and make sure that so we need creative thinkers, and it isn't just about being able to code and being able to understand devices. It's also about looking forward and being like, okay, we've got lots of new challenges. We've got different things that are coming. So like mass digitization is something that's never happened before. Automation, virtual reality, all of these interesting kind of building machine learning, AI systems for the future. So thinking 10, 20 years ahead, what is that going to look like? And I think to come back to kind of me and my own kind of personal moment is women and people from a whole variety of backgrounds and identities need to be included in this journey. Our voices, our opinions, our lived experience have to be taken into account. And I know that just being like kind of female lead of a tech company, it's almost like everybody's like, oh my God, come and talk at this thing, come and be on this panel. You have a different perspective to bring. And it is really exciting. But also, I know that my lived experiences are really valuable to our clients when we're creating technology, because I think about things differently. I come at it from a different perspective. And just kind of as everybody here, undergraduate, thinking about career in technology, it is absolutely required that you are part of that. And don't ever underestimate kind of what your lived experience brings to a team, brings to product development, and brings to innovation. So, thank you. I think I went 1 minute over.
I know we're running into lunch a bit. We'll take one question while the photograph gets set up. If you don't want to be in the photograph, now is the time to leave.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. I think everyone wants lunch.
One, if there's one. Yeah, we got one over there.
Hello. Thank you very much for the talk. I really appreciate the idea of having a more inclusive future, and technology can be a very big benefactor in that. So when you talked about the internet-connected bin, I think that having a look from a different perspective can be very useful, because in reality, not everyone can see if their bin is full, right?
Yeah.
So even though for us that might be not very beneficial, but for other people it can be a very big, like even hygienic question.
Yeah, and it is interesting the internet connected bin that I mentioned, I suppose I should have had a visual really, but it was a bin with a band, a coloured band around it that would send, so it had a sensor in it and it would just light up to tell you that it was full. I understand that there are a huge amount of ways that bin could actually be used for anybody with disabilities. And taking all of those different things into account is brilliant, because one of the things that we've done with the push to talk button, for example, is it lights up when you press it, but it also makes a noise. It's ergonomic so that you don't have to use a hand or a finger. You can use an elbow or a foot or any sort of part of the body. You can sit on it if it is not easily to be broken. And yeah, those things are really important. And one of the other bits that I've had, particularly being like a woman in a room full of men who are designing systems, is they always have this sort of like their own perspective first, and then when it's just me, I'm like, oh, have you considered these things? And they're like, oh, no, we didn't think about that. But it is a really important question and important consideration for including everybody. Does that answer your question?
In a way.
In a way.
So thank you to Jen.
Okay.